Hello everyone, this is Betsy from Ideas Times 2, and today I have a tutorial and craft with me. I guess it's kind of all of that wrapped into one. A couple years ago I filmed a paper marbling part 1 and kind of covered all the basics about the water to use, the paints to use, the brushes, and all that, how to make a stone pattern. So we did all of that in the first video, and I will put a link to that down below because I'm not going to cover too much of that today. I might mention it here and there, but I'm not going to cover too much of that because it's already explained in the last video. And so today is part 2. It's been a while, so I do apologize for that, but super excited to be back today to share with you some more stuff. So I just put these here as a little bit of a teaser, just sort of samples that you can do. Now these are not perfect. These are not perfect. I could point out the flaws, but I'm not going to, because we are just going to give it a whirl. And the more you do this, the easier it will become. You may have a mistake or two, but I don't know. It's super fun to try and exciting when your plan comes together. All right, so I spilled paint just a little while ago, and I can't get that color to come off. So this is my start though. I have my pan, which I spray painted white. Also protects it from getting rusty. So the pan is prepared for that. It's the old pan I used in the last video. I just spray painted it. I've prepared my size, which is the thickened water. And now I'm just going to pour this water into my pan, trying not to make bubbles. So I just thought I would come along and pour this. I know you've seen me do this before, but there is a step that I'd like to mention, though, that I didn't mention in the last video, so I'm going to do that. As you can see, I've got my paints ready to go, my brushes ready to go, and this is the thing I wanted to say here. So to break up the surface tension of this thickened water, which is called the size, to release any bubbles or maybe get some little, it's thickened water, right? And sometimes, for example, if you make gelatin or something like that, and you might get a little glob that is a little thicker than the rest of it. And so this next step here will prevent some trouble from happening. I just have a stick. I purchased all my things from marbleart.us, which is a company I recommended last time. I still highly recommend them. So I'm just breaking up my surface tension. I actually gathered up a bubble, so that's really great. And then I'm going to wipe this off with a paper towel. And you can use this stick over and over. I got this from marbleart.us. In the previous video, they were offering a discount, but I do not have that for you today. But they're still a great company, and the prices are reasonable too. All right, I have this all prepared, except I see a little dot right there. I'm going to need to get that out. So I'm just going to take a stick, I think. There we go. Got that out. I don't know what it was. But those types of things, especially if you're drawing a rake or a comb through your size and you have a little glob of something, it's going to ruin your whole design. So, you know, it could still be used. Like some of your paper might be perfect and the rest has the streak in it. So you can use whatever, whatever works for you. But we don't necessarily want to try and make mistakes. We want to work on getting it nice and smooth and all over pattern. All right, so I have my paint poured. Always recommend pouring what you're going to use, or what you feel like you're going to use, in a container. You don't want to work directly out of the paint jar like this because it can get contaminated as you go along. Also, if you're adding gall, which I covered in the previous video, if you're adding gall, then you're going to contaminate your whole jar with gall. So we don't want that. We want to work just with a little bit of paint at a time. So let's get started. So the first thing is to throw our stone pattern down. And always recommend stirring because the pigment can settle down to the bottom. Even if you haven't been working with it very long, the pigment can always settle down to the bottom. So we're just gonna do an all over pattern of black first. Highly recommend black first to kind of give the whole piece some definition. Tap off your brush so you don't get giant globs of paint. And so you can see the pattern forming. Well, it's actually not really a pattern yet, but you can see the paint spreading on the sides. So we're just going to go ahead and do this. And I'm going to keep going with my colors. I know you saw me do this in the previous video, so I'll be back after I'm done with the paint. I decided to keep going, and what I'll do is just speed up this portion once I get going here. So I've laid down a copper color so you can see how it broke up the black. And then from now on, I'll just speed up this portion. And so you don't have to watch me do this all over again like in the previous, as I did in the previous video, you could see the whole thing. So so there it is. We have black, teal, viridian, brown, copper, and a little bit of gray in here. So the next step is I could pull this print as a stone pattern, which I did in the previous video, so it would look amazing. The stone is actually one of my favorite prints. I actually love that. But let's take it a step further and let's make a different pattern than we had before. So we're going to stir the colors. Now, I don't mean, just like mixing it up. To stir it, all we're going to be doing is taking these dots, these spots, and stretching them out into lines. So that's basically what we're going to be doing. And you're just going to take a stick, a wooden stick, hold it straight up and down, insert it into one of the edges, draw it straight across, lift up the stick, insert it a ½ inch away, and draw it across. And the key, the object, I guess, is to make the lines as straight as possible and do it very slowly. So we're going to go ahead and start real close to the edge. Hold it straight up and down. And you may not see much happening yet. You can rest the stick right along the bottom of your pan, ½ inch. If you have dots remaining in your paint, it's kind of considered to be not as good a quality, especially when we're looking for a more traditional pattern, like the next couple of ones that I'll be showing you. So another fun thing about this is you can experiment and decide what you like. You don't necessarily have to go with traditional patterns. So that's kind of fun too. What we're making right now, after we're stretching the paint, is called a Galgate. It's a Turkish word, and it just means back and forth kind of idea. So we're just stretching the paint, and then we're going to get it like a zigzag pattern. Go very slowly. We don't want to mess up our paint. Like I said, at any stage you can do what you like, because this will be your own piece, and you may decide you want to make it more modern looking or just different, and you certainly can do that. So I will continue to do this, but I'll speed up the rest of the video so you don't have to watch me go back and forth 20 more times. So here is our pattern. So you can see it makes a zigzag design. It stretches most of my paint out, although it looks like I have some spots that are probably not ideal. But we're just going to go ahead and pull this print, and then we'll move on. So my plan today is to show you 4 different prints. Now, my paper was too close to the paint and I have a few spots on there, but I'm going to use this anyway. So we form a sling, and then the part of the paper that hits the paper first, or paint first, is this one right here. So it's going to be a sling like this. This is going to hit first. Obviously I'm the wrong angle there. So this will hit first, and then we're going to gently drop each hand kind of simultaneously all the way until the entire surface of the paint or paper hits the paint. If an edge curls up, just give it a little tap with your finger. So we're just going to go ahead and get started. We'll show you what this pattern looks like. This is actually the pattern that you start all the other patterns with. But just like the stone pattern is sort of a beginning point as well, this is a beginning point, but you from this and it'll be also a fun print. So I'm trying to take a look at my pattern here. Just gently, very, very evenly distribute that paper down. And on my, make sure that my edges are all touching the paint, which I think they are. Okay, and then always have your tray ready to transfer the paper over. So we're going to pull it out, and I'll show you what it looks like before I put it down. So it looks like that, just kind of a beautiful overall zigzag pattern of colors. And then we'll rinse that off, as I explained in the other video. But I've also usually have a plan for this left over here. I'll take a book page, or I usually have a vintage book page. Let me grab one. All right, so I have some vintage book pages. Vintage paper works better because, I mean, the reason why we have to treat this with alum first, as I explained in the other video, you have to prepare the paper with alum. So the reason why is because paper nowadays has a lot of, is chemically treated, and the paint won't always stick on its own. However, if you have like old music sheets or book pages or even old paper, there's probably not anything on here to inhibit the paint from sticking. And so I like to clean this up because I still feel like I have a beautiful pattern going here. And so as not to waste it, I will dab it up with a vintage book page, and then you've got a nice pattern and sort of like a little freebie. I see how it cleaned up most of the paint too, so I'm going to do that here, and then we have fun pattern there. So I'm going to rinse that off and clean up my size, and I'll be back for the next pattern. Okay, there's our Galgate pattern. Looking pretty good. Not as spotty as my other one, so I'm happy with that. You could also go in and manipulate. If you have some spots that you're not happy with, you could manipulate it a little bit, but you want to keep that zigzag pattern as a general rule. Okay, so the next pattern we're going to do uses a comb. So here is a regular comb. It's not the fine tooth comb. You can use a fine tooth comb for this as well, and the lines will be closer together. So what you're going to do with this is to hold this. You kind of want to rest your fingers, your pinkies on the table. Hold this at a little bit of an angle, and then just dip those pins that are on here just under the surface of the water. You don't necessarily have to scrape the bottom, but you certainly can. That's not an issue, but it'll save a little bit of scraping along the bottom of your pan if you don't. But just hold it at an angle, rest your pinkies or your fingers somehow on the side of the pan, and just run it straight down very slowly and gently. Now, if you have any lint or, like I said, any little globs from your carrageenan, it's going to drag and make a kind of an awful looking line down the middle. But hopefully it's all clear, ready to go. But all those things come with experience, and this pattern that we're doing right now is called the non Pera. The non Pera, and this is also the beginning of many other patterns. So this is a good one to master as well. So I'm going to start at the top here. I've got my fingers along the side of my pan. Can you see it? This is where the magic happens. You want those lines to go as straight as possible, which is why I've got my fingers anchored on my pan. I don't see any globs. My knuckle is running into a jar of paint, so that was my, that was my fault there. Very slowly, just run it in. And there is our pattern, and it's called a non Pera. Okay, so this is also a good example right here. And I'm going to see if I can zoom in on that a little bit for you. Right there. I'm going to sort of point to it right there. I must have had a piece of lint or something in on the surface of my size. So I'm going to zoom back out and we're going to pull this print so you can see what it looks like. All right, now I also do a quick swipe and clean off my comb. So I'm going to do that here. We got our empty pan ready for the print. So we can just transfer it right over. Okay, let me grab a piece of paper. And these are the papers that I had already prepared. So I'm going to try to avoid that section that I showed you that I wasn't happy with. And we're going to sort of stick to the top here and see if we can just very gently and carefully get a nice print. Don't worry if some size comes up over your paper. Kind of tap any edges you think may be sticking up or curling up. The good thing about this paper, so the last video I made, it was called Texoprint, the paper, and now it's a different kind that they sell at Marble Art, and I don't remember the name of it, but it's equally good paper. I love it. Perfect for marbling. Okay, so I'm going to pull this, turn it over, and show you on the camera, and then I'll go rinse it. So there you have your known Pera. Okay, you can see this whitish streak right here is where I hesitated when I was laying it down. But other than that, I really like it, and I think the colors are kind of fun on this. So I'll take that and rinse it, and we will like to come on here and say the last video I used newspaper to clean up the size, which is an excellent way. However, not a lot of people have newspaper anymore, but if you can get your hands on newspaper without having to buy a stick, that's perfect. But I did purchase a stick recently, as a matter of fact, and I'm really enjoying this. And we don't get newspaper either. We get sort of like a coupon newspaper. But the other thing I wanted to note here is that you may see some streaks. Once again, let me zoom in a little bit, and you'll see some streaks in the size there. And those are beneath the surface. So those are nothing we need to worry about as long as you're either with your newspaper or your cleaning stick. If you're pulling and dragging your surface, and for example, this wooden stick, if I wipe it off on a paper towel and I still see paint, there's still paint that needs to come off. But once you get to a point where there's just liquid, sorry, I forgot I was zoomed in, where there's just liquid like this, then you know that it's clean. But you can kind of look at it at an angle and actually figure out if that's on the surface or underneath the surface. But those types of things are going to happen, and I just wanted to make note of that for you. I'm going to zoom back out and get some Okay, that looks good. I'm happy with that. So we've made our Galgate, right? So you guys know how to do that already. So the next pattern we're going to make is called a feather. So what we need for that is now a rake. So a rake is basically the same thing as a comb, except the teeth are way farther apart and they're larger. Whereas the other ones sort of look like pins, these look more like nails. And it has a blunt end here. The sharp end is driven into the wood. And this one is longer too, as you can see. So I'm going to be going the opposite way that we pulled our comb through. And what I'm going to do with this, it's going to be straight up and down. The nails are going to be touching the bottom of the pan. And we're going to run it in a sort of a zigzag fashion like this, just sloping ever slightly, not sharp up and down like this, but just very, very gently, keeping this as vertical as possible without going like this, which is what I just did. And then we're just going to go just sloping ever gently, and it's going to be called the feather pattern. So let's go. So put it in the water, rest it down. I think I'm going to sort of come off to the side here and use two hands. So then we're going to go up, down, up, all right. And once again, I clean that off as quickly as I can. And then grab a piece of paper and pull our print. Trying to see if I have a good part, bad part. My pan. Okay, now we're going to lift this up and I'll show you what we've got. Okay, so you can kind of see what they mean by feathers. And that's a beautiful pattern. Loving that. Loving that. All right, now I said maybe a couple more, but I think we'll stop there. That was 4 patterns. So I think that's it for today. There are a couple more patterns we could do. If you're interested, let me know. But that's the basics of paper marbling. That first video gives 100% of the basics, like the water and the paint, etc. So I hope you enjoyed this. I'm gonna pick up the rest of this paint with some book pages and make some cool little collage sheets with that. But I hope you enjoyed this video, and like I said, just let me know if you'd like some more patterns. I'm super glad to do it. Paper marbling is kind of addictive. It's so fun, and once you get going, you don't really want to stop. Especially if you make a mistake, you're like, oh, I can do that better, and then you just keep going. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. So take care, everyone. I'll leave the links where you can find us down below, and we will catch you in the next video. Bye.